A huge frustration for scholars is that the Bible does not name the Pharaoh of the Exodus. Some have argued that the biblical writer simply didn't remember. But if he could remember the names of the two midwives in Exodus 2, Shiphrah and Puah, it seems unlikely that he wouldn't remember the name of the most powerful ruler in the world at the time. Whatever the explanation, this is the reality we must live with. We can, however, make some deductions. The best historical anchor for determining the identity of the Pharaoh is 1 Kings 6:1, which describes the construction of Solomon's temple in the king's fourth year. According to the text, the exodus from Egypt took place 480 years before Solomon's fourth year. The generally accepted date for the beginning of Solomon's reign is 970 BCE, which would put his fourth year in 966 BCE. Thus, adding 480 to 966 gives you 1446 BCE as the date of the Exodus. That date would fall during the reign of Thutmose III. Scholars call the 1446 date for the Exodus the early date view. However, there are two serious problems with the early date. 1446 is almost 150 years before Ramses I built the capital city of Ramses in the land of Goshen, as mentioned in Exodus 1:11. Secondly, in 1446, the capital of Egypt was not in the land of Goshen in the Nile Delta, but in Thebes, some 400 miles to the south. The biblical text is clear. The Pharaoh lived in the city of Ramses in the same geographical location as the Hebrew slaves. According to the British evangelical scholar Kenneth Kitchen, one of the most famous Egyptologists in the world, adding 480 to 966 to arrive at 1446 for an early date exodus is the lazy man solution. This is because if one bothers to check all of the known biblical figures for this period, one does not arrive at a total of 480 years, but 553 years. And 1519 BC is too early, even for an early date exodus. For Kitchen and most biblical scholars, the better explanation is that 480 years is the sum total of 12 generations of 40 years. 40 is widely known in the ancient Near East as a schematic number for a generation. Now, why 40 should mean a generation is unknown, since the actual span of time for one generation was closer to 25 years. Yet, somehow 40 came to symbolize a generation in the same way that 13 came to be a superstitious number. Based on an actual generation of 25 years in antiquity, 12 generations of 25 years would equal 300 years instead of 480, making 1266 BCE as the actual year of the Exodus. This date places us in the reign of Ramses II, when the capital city of Ramses existed in the Nile Delta, just as the Bible says. Scholars call this date the late date view.